My daughter-in-law said, "Choose Ethan, either me or your mother." My son looked at me, then at her, and said the 5 words that changed everything. "Charlotte is my wife, Mom." I packed my things that same night and moved out of their house. What they didn't know was that the house was in my name. Only my name. 1 month later, they received an eviction notice. I'm glad you're here with me. Please follow my story until the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I never imagined my golden years would begin with standing in a hotel room at midnight, staring at legal documents that proved I owned the house my own son had just kicked me out of. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start 3 years earlier when this whole mess began. It was a Tuesday in March when Richard collapsed in our backyard. One moment he was trimming the rose bushes he'd planted for our 30th anniversary. The next he was on the ground, hand pressed to his chest, eyes wide with something between surprise and apology. Heart attack. Massive. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. At 65, I became a widow. The grief was crushing. 42 years of marriage erased in an afternoon. Our house in Sacramento, the one we'd raised Ethan in, suddenly felt enormous and empty. Every room held memories. His coffee cup still sat on the kitchen counter, his reading glasses on the nightstand, his jacket hanging by the door. I couldn't bring myself to move them. 2 months after the funeral, Ethan showed up at my door. He'd driven 4 hours from his place in San Jose unannounced. I saw my husband's eyes looking back at me from my son's face, and I almost started crying again. "Mom," he said, pulling me into a hug. "We need to talk." We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd helped him with homework, where we'd celebrated birthdays, where Richard and I had planned our future. Now it was just me. "You can't stay here alone," Ethan said, his voice gentle but firm. "This house is too big. You shouldn't be isolated out here." "I'm managing," I replied, though we both knew it was a lie. I'd been rationing my blood pressure medication because I couldn't face the pharmacy where Richard used to pick up his prescriptions. I'd lost 12 pounds because cooking for one felt pointless. "Come live with us," he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "Charlotte and I have been talking about it. We have that extra bedroom. We want you there, Mom." My throat tightened. "Sweetheart, I can't impose on you and Charlotte like that." "It's not imposing." He squeezed my hand. "You raised me by yourself after Dad left when I was 6. You worked 2 jobs to put me through college. You sacrificed everything for me. Let me take care of you now. Please." Charlotte had been wonderful at the funeral. She'd organized the reception, fielded phone calls, made sure I ate. She'd held my hand during the eulogy and whispered, "You're not alone. You have us." Within 6 weeks of Ethan's visit, I'd made my decision. Selling the house was harder than I expected. Walking through empty rooms one last time, I said goodbye to the life I'd built with Richard. But Ethan was right. I couldn't stay there drowning in memories and loneliness. The house sold for $380,000. After paying off the remaining mortgage and taxes, I cleared $350,000. It was more money than I'd ever had at once in my life. That's when things got complicated. Ethan and Charlotte had found a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood in San Jose. Tree-lined streets, good schools nearby, a small backyard. It was perfect for them. There was just one problem. They couldn't afford it. Charlotte had just finished her MBA and was drowning in student loans. Nearly $80,000 worth. Ethan had switched jobs 6 months earlier, taking a pay cut for better long-term opportunities. Their credit score was in the low 600s. No bank would give them the mortgage they needed. "We're pre-approved for $300,000, Ethan explained, showing me the bank letter. "But this house is $475. We've been looking for months, Mom. Everything in our price range is either too far from our jobs or in terrible neighborhoods." I looked at the listing photos on his laptop. Hardwood floors, updated kitchen, a master bedroom with windows facing east perfect for morning light, a 3rd bedroom that would be mine. "What if I helped?" I heard myself say. Ethan's head snapped up. "Mom, no, we can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering." I'd been thinking about this since he first invited me to live with them. I could put down $200,000 toward the house. That would bring the mortgage down to something you could handle. Charlotte, who'd been quiet until then, leaned forward. "Emily, that's incredibly generous. but we couldn't accept such a large gift. It's not a gift, I said, the plan forming as I spoke. Here's what I'm thinking. You two can't qualify for the mortgage you need, but I can. I'll purchase the house outright with my savings. You'll live there, make monthly payments to me, and in 5 years, when your finances are better, we'll transfer the deed to your names. It made perfect sense. They'd get their dream home. I'd have a place to live with my family. My money would be secure. Everyone would win. Are you sure? Ethan asked, his voice thick with emotion. I'm sure. We shook hands on it that afternoon. Looking back, I realized that was my first mistake. We should have gotten everything in writing, made it official, protected everyone's interests. But he was my son. I trusted him completely. The house closed escrow in June. I paid $475,000 cash, covering it with my savings from selling my old house, plus a chunk of Richard's life insurance. The deed went into my name. Emily Marie Crawford, sole owner. We'll get the paperwork done to add our names, Charlotte said as we stood in the empty living room on moving day. Once our credit improves. There's no rush, I replied, meaning it. Let's just focus on making this a home. And for the first 6 months, it really was. I had the bedroom at the end of the hall, spacious and sunny with its own bathroom. Charlotte helped me decorate it, even drove me to Target to pick out new curtains and a comforter in my favorite shade of blue. This is your space, Mom, she said, using the nickname she'd adopted within weeks of their wedding. Make it exactly how you want it. I contributed $500 a month for groceries and utilities. It seemed fair. I did most of the cooking, which I actually enjoyed. It gave me purpose again. Making Ethan's favorite pot roast baking cookies when they came home from work, preparing Sunday dinners. Charlotte would come home and find me in the kitchen, and she'd smile. Something smells amazing, Emily. You're spoiling us. My knitting circle met at the house once a month. Dorothy, Agnes, Susan, and I had been friends for 15 years. Charlotte would set out coffee and pastries for us, chat with the ladies for a few minutes before excusing herself. Your daughter-in-law is lovely, Dorothy would say after Charlotte left. So warm and welcoming. I'd nod proud. My son had chosen well. But looking back, I can see the signs I missed. Small things, really. The way Charlotte would reorganize the kitchen cabinets after I cooked, moving my carefully arranged spices and pans. I have a system, she'd explain with a tight smile. It's easier for me to find things this way. Or how she'd wipe down the counters immediately after I finished cleaning them, as if my work wasn't quite good enough. One Saturday morning, I mentioned that Dorothy wanted to host our next knitting circle meeting at my place. Charlotte looked up from her coffee, her expression briefly flickering with something I couldn't quite read. Actually, Emily, I'd prefer if we didn't have gatherings here for a while. Work has been stressful, and I really need our home to be a quiet space. I hope you understand. Our home. Not the house, or your space too. Our home. Of course, I said quickly. I'll let Dorothy know we'll meet at her place instead. Charlotte smiled back to her warm self. Thank you for understanding. Maybe in a few months when things calm down at work. Those few months never came. By month 7, I noticed Ethan becoming quieter at dinner. He'd come home tired, stressed about his new position. Charlotte would rub his shoulders and shoot me looks that seemed to say, see how hard he works. He needs peace and quiet. I started eating dinner in my room more often, giving them space. Month 9, Charlotte began referring to rooms possessively. My kitchen needs new cabinet hardware. I'm thinking of repainting my living room. Always my, never our, or thee. When I gently corrected her, once saying, don't you mean our living room? Her smile turned sharp. Well, Ethan and I are the ones making the mortgage payments, aren't we? The words stung. They were making payments to me, true, but irregular ones. Sometimes $800, sometimes $1,200, depending on their budget that month. Nothing was formalized. No lease agreement. No clear terms. I'd never pushed for documentation because this was family. You don't need contracts when it's family. Another mistake. By the end of the first year, I'd become hyper-aware of my presence in the house. I tiptoed around, tried to be invisible, stayed in my room when they had friends over, cleaned up any trace of myself immediately after using common areas. I was living in my own house like a ghost haunting rooms that no longer wanted me. The birthday incident happened in February, 2.5 years after I'd moved in. Ethan's 36th birthday fell on a Thursday. For 35 years, I'd made his birthday special. When he was little and we couldn't afford much, I'd bake his favorite chocolate cake from scratch and let him choose dinner. As he got older, the celebrations evolved, but the tradition remained. This year I wanted to do something nice, something to recapture that warmth we'd had in the beginning. Charlotte worked late on Thursdays, usually not getting home until 7. Ethan typically arrived around 6. That gave me an hour to set up a small surprise. Nothing elaborate. Just some streamers in his favorite color, a homemade banner, and that chocolate cake. I invited his best friend Jake and Jake's wife Sarah. Close intimate. Family. I spent all afternoon preparing. The cake turned out perfectly. I made his favorite dinner pot roast with roasted vegetables. I set the table with the good plates, put out flowers I'd bought from the grocery store. At 5:45, Jake and Sarah arrived with a bottle of wine. "Emily, this is so thoughtful," Sarah said, hugging me. "Ethan's going to love it." At 6:15, Ethan walked through the door. His face lit up when he saw the decorations. "Mom, you did all this? Happy birthday, sweetheart." I hugged him tight, and for a moment everything felt right again. This was my son, my boy, and I could still make him smile. We were halfway through dinner, laughing at one of Jake's stories about their college days, when I heard Charlotte's car in the driveway. My stomach dropped. She was home 2 hours early. The front door opened. Charlotte's heels clicked against the hardwood floor with sharp, aggressive precision. She appeared in the dining room doorway, still in her work suit, her face carefully blank. "What's going on here?" Her voice was quiet, controlled. "Charlotte, you're home early." I stood up, trying to sound cheerful. "I organized a small birthday dinner for Ethan. There's plenty of food if you'd like to join us." She looked at the streamers, the banner, the table set with people she barely knew. Her jaw tightened. "Ethan, can I speak with you in the kitchen now?" The room went silent. Jake and Sarah exchanged uncomfortable glances. Ethan stood slowly, already looking defeated. "Charlotte, honey, what's wrong?" I tried. She turned to me, and her eyes were ice. "What's wrong is that you organized an event in my house without asking my permission." "I just thought you thought wrong." She turned on her heel and walked to the kitchen. Ethan followed like a scolded child. I could hear them through the doorway. Charlotte didn't bother lowering her voice. "This is exactly what I'm talking about, Ethan. She doesn't respect boundaries. She treats this place like it's hers." "It's just a birthday dinner, Charlotte." "It's not about the dinner. It's about the principle. I come home exhausted from work, and there are strangers in my house because your mother decided to play hostess. Jake's my best friend. I don't care if he's the Pope. She should have asked me first. This is my home, Ethan. Mine." I looked at Jake and Sarah. Their plates were still half full, but Sarah had already started gathering her purse. "We should probably go," Jake said quietly. "Let you all work this out." "No, please," I started, but Sarah was already standing. "It's okay, Emily. We understand. Happy birthday, Ethan." She called toward the kitchen, her voice falsely bright. They were gone within 3 minutes, taking the bottle of wine with them. I stood in the dining room looking at the half-eaten meal, the decorations that suddenly seemed childish and desperate. The birthday cake sat on the counter untouched, its 36 candles still waiting to be lit. When Ethan emerged from the kitchen 10 minutes later, his face was pale. "Mom, I'm sorry. Charlotte's just had a really stressful week at work. She didn't mean—" "She's right," I interrupted. "I should have asked first. This is her home. I overstepped." Even as I said it, something inside me twisted. Her home. The home I'd purchased. The home that existed because of my $350,000. "You didn't overstep," Ethan said, but he couldn't meet my eyes. "It was thoughtful. Thank you." Charlotte appeared in the doorway. She'd changed into casual clothes, her face now composed, pleasant even. "Emily, I apologize for raising my voice. You know how I get when I'm stressed." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Next time, just check with me first before planning things. That's all I ask." "Of course," I managed. "I understand." That night, lying in my bed, I heard them arguing. The walls in the house were thin enough that voices carried, especially when those voices were raised. "She acts like she owns the place," Charlotte's voice sharp and clear. "She's trying to be nice," Ethan replied, tired. "She's overstepping. I can't relax in my own home because your mother is always there, always hovering." If only she'd known the irony of those words. I wish I could say the birthday incident was the turning point, the moment I realized I needed to leave. But the truth is I stayed. I convinced myself Charlotte was right. I had overstepped. I needed to be more considerate, more aware of boundaries. I became smaller, quieter, more invisible. I stopped using the kitchen except for basic necessities. Bought a mini fridge for my room so I wouldn't have to go downstairs as often. Ate cereal for dinner most nights rather than cook and risk leaving any trace in her kitchen. The knitting circle stopped meeting at the house entirely. When Dorothy asked why we never gathered at my place anymore, I made excuses. Charlotte's work schedule is unpredictable. It's easier to meet at your place. Dorothy looked at me with concern. Emily, are you okay? You seem different lately. I'm fine, I lied, just adjusting to retirement. 3 months after the birthday dinner, I was coming back from the grocery store when I heard Charlotte on the phone in the backyard. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. The kitchen window was open and her voice carried. No, Mom, I know. It's driving me insane. Yes, still living here. I don't know how much longer I can take it. It's like having a permanent house guest who never leaves. I've tried hinting, but Ethan won't have that conversation with her. The house. Well, that's complicated. Technically, it's in her name because of our credit situation when we bought it. I know. We need to get that fixed. Ethan keeps saying he'll bring it up, but he's too much of a coward. I stood frozen in the driveway, grocery bags cutting into my hands. She wanted me gone, and she knew about the deed being in my name. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Charlotte's words. Technically, it's in her name. There was no technically about it. It was in my name, period. But for the first time, a question wormed its way into my mind. Why hadn't we transferred the deed yet? I pulled out the folder I kept in my nightstand. The deed, the title insurance, the closing documents from 3 years ago, all showing Emily Marie Crawford as the sole owner. When we'd first moved in, the plan was to formalize everything once Ethan and Charlotte's credit improved. Maybe in a year, they'd said. Year 1 passed. I'd brought it up once. Should we look into that deed transfer? Our credit score is still recovering, Ethan had said. Let's wait a bit longer. Year 2. I didn't bring it up. Neither did they. Now we were in year 3. Charlotte had an MBA and a good job. Ethan had been promoted twice. Surely their credit had improved by now. I did something I'd never done before. I logged into my bank account and checked the history of their payments to me. They were supposed to pay $1,800 a month. That's what we'd verbally agreed on. Enough to cover property tax insurance and give me a little income. In 3 years, I'd received first-year average of $900 per month sporadic timing. Second-year average of $200 per month, often 2 months late. Third-year average of $800 per month, increasingly irregular. They owed me over $40,000 in back payments. My hands started shaking. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark, trying to process what I'd discovered. They weren't trying to build credit to take over the house. They were using my house, paying whatever they felt like and waiting for. What for me to die? For me to just give it to them? I thought about confronting Ethan, but something held me back. A voice in my head that sounded like Richard, get your facts straight first. Know your position before you make a move. The next morning I went to the county recorder's office. I requested a full title search and property record. The clerk, a young woman named Jessica, pulled up the information. Here you go, ma'am. Property purchased June 2021, $475,000 cash sale. Owner Emily Marie Crawford. No liens, no co-owners, no encumbrances. It's all yours, free and clear. And if I wanted to sell it or transfer ownership, you'd need to sign the deed. As the sole owner, you have complete control. You could sell it tomorrow if you wanted to. Complete control. I thanked her and walked back to my car. Sat there for 20 minutes staring at the paperwork. They had no legal claim. None. The house was mine. That evening I did something I hadn't done in months. I made dinner in her kitchen. Pot roast. The one Ethan loved. Charlotte came home first. I heard her heels stop in the hallway when she smelled the cooking. What are you making? Her voice was carefully neutral. Pot roast. Ethan's favorite. There's plenty if you'd like some. She stood in the doorway watching me move around the kitchen like I owned it. Because I did. Actually, Emily, Ethan, and I were planning to get takeout tonight. We have some things to discuss. Private things. Of course, I said pleasantly. I'll eat in my room. But I didn't. I set a place for myself at the dining room table, put out a cloth napkin, poured myself a glass of the wine I'd bought with my own money. When Ethan arrived home, he looked surprised to find me eating at the table. "Mom, you're not eating in your room." "Why would I?" I met his eyes. "This is my house too, isn't it?" Charlotte's fork clattered against her plate. The tension was thick enough to cut. We ate in silence. That night I heard them arguing again. This time I pressed my ear to the wall, listening intently. "She's getting difficult," Charlotte said. "Yesterday she was cooking like she owned the place. Tonight she's eating at our table like she has a right to be there." "She does have a right," Ethan said weakly. "She lives here." "But for how much longer we need to have this conversation, Ethan? She needs to move into senior living or something. This arrangement isn't working." "I can't just kick my mother out." "Why not? She has plenty of money from selling her old house. She could afford a nice retirement community." "Ethan, I want to start a family. How can we do that with your mother in the next room?" A long silence. Then, "What about the deed situation?" My heart stopped. "What about it?" Charlotte asked. "The house is still in her name. We can't exactly kick her out of her own property." "Jesus, Ethan, are you really that naive? She's been living here for 3 years. We've been making payments. Any lawyer would tell you we have an implied lease or rental agreement. We have rights." "I don't know, Charlotte. Maybe we should just wait." "Wait for what? For her to die? She's 68 and healthy. We could be waiting another 20 years. I can't live like this for 20 more years." I stepped back from the wall, my whole body trembling. They were planning something. I could feel it. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday evening in late May, everything came to a head. I'd spent the afternoon at the library trying to stay out of the house as much as possible. The atmosphere had become unbearable. Charlotte barely spoke to me. Ethan looked perpetually guilty but wouldn't meet my eyes. When I came home at 5:30, Charlotte's car was already in the driveway. She was home 2 hours early, just like the birthday incident. My stomach knotted. I walked in to find her sitting at the kitchen table, still in her work clothes, waiting. "Emily, we need to talk." I set down my purse slowly. "About what?" "About this living arrangement. It's not working anymore." "I see." I remained standing, my heart pounding. "What specifically isn't working?" She stood up, crossing her arms. "All of it. I can't have privacy in my own home. You're always here, always hovering. Every room has evidence of you in it. I can't breathe in my own space. I've been trying to stay out of your way." "That's exactly the problem." Her voice rose. "You shouldn't have to stay out of my way. You should just not be here." The words hung between us, brutal in their honesty. "Charlotte," I said carefully, "when Ethan invited me to live here, we agreed. That was 3 years ago. Things change. Needs change. Ethan and I want to start a family, Emily. We want our home to ourselves. Surely you can understand that." Before I could respond, I heard the front door open. Ethan's keys jingling. His footsteps stopping when he heard voices. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, his face pale. He looked between Charlotte and me, and I knew. He'd known this was coming. Maybe even planned it with her. "Mom," he started, but Charlotte cut him off. "Ethan, your mother and I are having a discussion about her moving out. I was just explaining that we need our space as a married couple." He wouldn't look at me. My son, who I'd raised alone from age 6, who I'd worked 2 jobs for, sacrificed my own dreams for put through college. He stood there and wouldn't meet my eyes. "Ethan," my voice came out smaller than I wanted. "Is this what you want?" The silence stretched. Each second felt like an hour. Charlotte's voice turned sharp. "He doesn't have to want it, Emily. I want it, and quite frankly, it's my home. I have a right to decide who lives here." "Your home?" The words escaped before I could stop them. "Yes, my home. Ethan and I make the mortgage payments. We maintain it. We've made it ours. You're—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "A guest who's overstayed her welcome." I looked at Ethan again. "Is that how you see me, as an unwelcome guest?" He opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed hard. "Ethan," Charlotte's voice was ice. "Tell her." And that's when she said it. The words that would change everything. "Choose Ethan. Either me or your mother. One of us has to go." The room went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I stared at my son. The boy I'd rocked through nightmares, who I'd taught to ride a bike, to tie his shoes, to be kind and strong and honest. The man standing before me bore little resemblance to that boy. "Ethan," I whispered. He looked at Charlotte, then at me. His face crumpled with conflict. Mom, He started, his voice breaking. Charlotte is my wife. I have to put my marriage first. The words were a physical blow. I actually took a step back, my hand finding the counter for support. Something inside me didn't just break, it shattered, atomized into particles so small I'd never be able to piece them back together. Charlotte's lips curved into a small, victorious smile. She'd won. I think it's best if you move out this week, she said, her voice matter-of-fact, like we were discussing the weather. We can help you find a nice senior apartment. There are some good ones near here that aren't too expensive. Senior apartment, like I was some doddering old woman who needed to be shuffled into a facility and forgotten. I found my voice. It came out steady cold. No need to wait a week. I'll pack tonight. Mom, you don't have to leave tonight, Ethan said, finally finding words. We can figure out. No, Ethan. I do have to leave. I looked at him, really looked at him, memorizing this moment. You've made your choice very clear. I turned and walked to my room. Each step felt mechanical, disconnected. I pulled my 2 large suitcases from the closet and began to pack. Clothes, photos, the few personal items I'd brought. I moved methodically, refusing to let emotion slow me down. If I stopped, if I let myself feel, I'd collapse. From the hallway, I could hear them talking in low voices. Charlotte's tone was satisfied. Ethan's was strained. I packed the essentials first. Then I went to my nightstand and pulled out the folder. The one with the property deed, the title insurance, the closing documents. I held it for a long moment, staring at my name. Emily Marie Crawford, sole owner. A laugh bubbled up, surprising me. Short, sharp, almost hysterical. They'd just kicked the actual homeowner out of her own house. I tucked the folder carefully into my carry-on bag. Then I continued packing. 4 hours later, at 11:15 p.m., I loaded the last suitcase into my car. Ethan and Charlotte watched from the living room window. I could see their silhouettes backlit by the lamp. Were they relieved, sad, guilty? I didn't care anymore. I took one last look at the house. My house. The one I'd bought with my life savings. The one they thought was theirs. Then I got in my car and drove away. I drove aimlessly for 20 minutes before pulling into an extended stay hotel off Highway 101. The night clerk barely glanced up as I checked in for a week. Room 237, he said, handing me a key card. 2nd floor, end of the hall. The room was exactly what you'd expect. Beige walls, floral bedspread, generic landscape painting. The smell of industrial cleaner and other people's disappointments. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my coat, and stared at the wall. What had I lost? My home? The one I'd raised Ethan in, sold without hesitation because I trusted him. My savings, $350,000 invested in a house I'd just been expelled from. My dignity, cast aside like a piece of furniture that no longer matched the decor. But most painfully, I'd lost my son. Or had I ever really had him if he could discard me so easily? The tears came then. Hot, bitter, overwhelming. I cried for the boy he'd been and the man he'd become. For the daughter-in-law who'd seen me as an obstacle instead of family. For the years I'd spent making myself smaller to fit into a life that never wanted me. I cried until I had nothing left. Then I wiped my eyes, opened my carry-on bag, and pulled out the leather folder. Inside was everything I needed. The deed showing Emily Marie Crawford as sole owner. The title insurance. The tax records all in my name. They'd kicked me out of my own house. A laugh escaped, sharp and almost hysterical. Then another. Soon I was laughing and crying simultaneously, the absurdity and tragedy colliding. Charlotte's words echoed, "This is my home." She'd staked her claim so confidently, so viciously, never knowing the ground beneath her feet didn't belong to her at all. The laughter faded. In its place, something colder settled into my chest. Something I hadn't felt in decades. Not since I'd stood up to Richard's family when they tried to take Ethan from me after the divorce, claiming I was unfit. I'd fought them then. Won. I could fight now, too, but I was scared. Taking legal action against my own son felt unnatural, wrong. I imagined the complete severing of our relationship, the grandchildren I might never have, the family gatherings that would never happen. Then I remembered his face, the way he'd looked past me, through me, as if I were already gone. The way he'd chosen a woman who treated me with cruelty over the mother who'd sacrificed everything. Maybe that relationship was already severed. Maybe I was just too afraid to see it. I opened my laptop and searched Real Estate Attorneys California Eviction. Tomorrow was Friday. I'd start making calls. But first I needed to understand my options. 3 hours of research later, the picture became clear. As the property owner, I had the right to evict them with proper notice. In California, that meant a formal eviction process, 30 to 60 days depending on circumstances. Since they'd never paid rent in any formal capacity, just those irregular payments framed as helping with the mortgage, the situation was even more advantageous for me. I could do this. I would do this. By sunrise, I had the outline of a plan. My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "Mom, are you okay? Where are you staying?" I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I turned off my phone. They wanted me gone. They'd get their wish. Monday morning, I sat in a Denny's at 7 a.m. drinking burnt coffee and watching commuters rush past the window. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's face as he chose Charlotte over me. My phone had 17 missed calls, 12 from Ethan, 5 from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't call back. Instead, I pulled out my laptop and continued where I'd left off. Real estate law, eviction procedures, tenant rights, owner rights. The waitress refilled my coffee for the 3rd time. "You doing okay, hon?" "Just fine." I lied, giving her a smile that felt like it might crack my face. By 9 a.m., I had a list of 5 real estate attorneys in San Jose. I called the first one. "Law offices of Patricia Rivera." A pleasant voice answered. "Hello, I need to speak with someone about an eviction case. It's complicated." "Ms. Rivera has an opening at 2 p.m. today. Would that work?" I looked at my empty calendar, my empty life. "Yes, I'll be there." Patricia Rivera's office was in a downtown high-rise all glass and chrome, the kind of place that screamed success and competence. I rode the elevator to the 12th floor, my hands trembling slightly. The receptionist, a young man with kind eyes, offered me water while I waited. "Ms. Crawford, Ms. Rivera will see you now." Patricia was perhaps 52, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. But her handshake was warm, her eyes sharp and assessing behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mrs. Crawford, please sit. Tell me what brings you here." I laid it out methodically. The death of my husband, moving in with Ethan and Charlotte, purchasing the house in my name, the verbal agreement, 3 years of irregular payments, the ultimatum, being forced to leave. Patricia took notes, her expression neutral. When I finished, she set down her pen. "Mrs. Crawford, do you understand what you're asking me to do? This is your son." "I understand perfectly." My voice didn't waver. "Can it be done legally?" She opened the folder I'd brought, studying the deed, the title insurance, the tax records. Her finger traced the property description. "Yes, you own the property outright. They have no lease agreement, no formal rental arrangement. Legally they're—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Essentially occupying your property without proper authorization." "What's the process?" Patricia explained. "Formal written notice, 30 days minimum. If they didn't vacate, I'd file an unlawful detainer lawsuit. The courts would enforce it. Timeline is approximately 2 to 3 months total, assuming they contest it, which they will given the family dynamics." "How much will this cost me?" "My retainer is $5,000. Total costs could run $10,000 to $15,000 if it goes to court, possibly more if they hire their own attorney." I thought of my savings steadily depleting. It would hurt, but I had enough. "Let's proceed." Patricia leaned forward, her gaze intense. "Mrs. Crawford, I need to ask you this directly. Are you absolutely certain, once we serve notice, there's no going back? This will permanently damage your relationship with your son." I met her eyes. "The relationship is already damaged. They destroyed it when they kicked me out of my own home. I'm just making it official." She nodded slowly. "Then we'll draft the notice today. You'll need to serve it formally. I recommend a professional process server to ensure it's done correctly. No room for them to claim they never received it. How soon can we do this?" "I can have the notice ready by Wednesday. We can serve it Thursday afternoon." 3 days. In 3 days, I'd be fighting back. "Do it." I left Patricia's office feeling lighter than I had in months, maybe years. For so long, I'd been passive, accepting, accommodating, making myself smaller to fit into spaces that didn't want me. No more. I checked into a small furnished apartment I'd found on Craigslist. Month to month, $1,200. It was in an older building, nothing fancy, but it was clean, and it was mine. The landlord, a tired-looking woman named Rosa, handed me the keys. "You need anything, you let me know. I live in 1A downstairs." "Thank you, Rosa. You got family here." "I did," I said quietly. "Not anymore." She looked at me with understanding. Sometimes family is who you choose, not who you're born to. Wednesday afternoon, Patricia called. "The notice is ready. Process server is scheduled for tomorrow at 4 p.m. They should both be home from work by then." "What happens when they get it?" "They'll have 30 days to vacate. After that, if they haven't left, we file the unlawful detainer and proceed to court." My stomach churned. "And if they fight it, then we fight back. Mrs. Crawford, you have the law on your side. The property deed is clear. They have no written lease, no ownership stake. This is as straightforward as eviction cases get." Straightforward. There was nothing straightforward about evicting your own child. That night I called Dorothy. "Emily, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days. Are you okay?" Hearing her familiar voice, I almost broke down. "I need to tell you something." I explained everything. The ultimatum, moving out, the deed, the eviction notice going out tomorrow. Silence on the other end. "Dorothy, I'm here. I'm just processing." A pause. "Emily, are you absolutely sure about this?" "Not her, too." "You think I'm wrong?" "No. God, no. I think Charlotte is a manipulative piece of work, and Ethan should have stood up for you. I'm asking if you're emotionally prepared for what comes next. This will get ugly." "It's already ugly." "Fair point." I heard her take a breath. "Okay, what do you need from me?" The question surprised me. You're my friend Emily. You've been my friend for 20 years. If you're going to war, you don't go alone. What do you need?" My eyes burned with tears. "I don't know." "Then let me tell you what you're getting. The knitting circle is meeting tomorrow night at my place. You're coming, and you're telling them everything. Because you're going to need people on your side when this explodes." Thursday at 4:15 p.m. Patricia called. "It's done. Both parties served. The process server confirmed Ethan Crawford and Charlotte Crawford each received a copy of the 30-day notice to vacate." I was sitting in my apartment staring at the wall. How did they react? The server said Mr. Crawford looked confused. Mrs. Crawford became verbally aggressive, but the server is experienced. He left without incident. "Thank you, Patricia. Mrs. Crawford, I need to prepare you. They're going to call. They're going to be angry, scared, desperate. Do not engage in any substantive conversation. Refer them to me. Do you understand?" "Yes." "And Emily," her voice softened, "you did the right thing. Don't let them convince you otherwise." The call came at 6:03 p.m. Ethan. His name lit up my screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Mom, what the hell is this?" His voice was panicked, angry. "We got some legal notice saying we have to move out in 30 days. This has to be a mistake. Some kind of identity theft, or..." "It's not a mistake, Ethan." Silence. "What are you talking about? This says you're evicting us. That doesn't make any sense. This is our house." "No," I said quietly. "It's my house. It's always been my house." I heard muffled sounds. Charlotte's voice in the background, sharp and demanding. "Mom, we can't just move out. We have jobs here. We've lived here for 3 years. You can't do this." "You told me to leave, I did. Now I'm asking the same of you." "That's completely different." His voice rose. "We didn't mean this is our home. You made it very clear it wasn't mine." Charlotte grabbed the phone. I heard the fumbling. "Margaret, this is ridiculous." She always called me Margaret when she was angry, dropping the mom pretense. "You can't evict your own son. What kind of mother are you?" The audacity almost made me laugh. "The kind who won't be disrespected in her own home." "This is illegal. We have rights. We've been paying the mortgage." "You've been making irregular payments to the owner." "Me, without any formal agreement. My attorney assures me this is completely legal. You have 30 days. "You bitter old..." Charlotte caught herself. "Fine. We'll fight this. We'll get our own lawyer. You'll regret this." "I regret many things, Charlotte. This isn't one of them." I hung up. My hands were shaking. Adrenaline flooded my system. But beneath the fear was something else. Liberation. That evening at Dorothy's house, I told the knitting circle everything. Dorothy, Agnes, Susan, and Maria sat around her living room listening. When I finished, Agnes spoke first. She was 76, a retired paralegal with a sharp mind. "They're going to fight dirty," she said. "They'll try to prove you're mentally incompetent. That's the standard move when families contest property issues." Patricia mentioned that possibility. "I can help you document everything. Timelines, financial records, communications. If this goes to court, you'll need a paper trail." Susan, a former teacher, leaned forward. "My nephew is a real estate appraiser. Let me call him. We should get a formal appraisal of the house. Establish its current market value." "Why does that matter?" I asked. "Because when they claim they have equity in the property based on their payments, we'll need to show how little they actually contributed compared to the home's worth." Maria, who worked at the hospital, squeezed my hand. "If Charlotte tries to trash your reputation publicly, and she will, I have connections with local journalists. We'll tell the real story." Dorothy stood up. "Here's what we're doing. We're your support system, your witnesses, your friends. You're not alone in this, Emily." I looked at these 4 women, some I'd known for decades, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Friday morning, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a scanned document, a care agreement dated 3 years ago, the day I moved in. According to this document, I had agreed to contribute to household expenses in exchange for room and board. The agreement explicitly stated I acknowledged having no ownership stake or claim to the property. My signature was at the bottom, except I'd never seen this document before in my life. I studied the signature. It looked like mine, close enough to fool a casual observer. But I knew my own handwriting. The loop in the E of Emily was wrong. The tail on the Y too short. The C in Crawford too angular. They'd forged my signature. My hands trembled as I forwarded it to Patricia with a message. "I never signed this. This is a forgery." Her response came within minutes. "Don't respond to them. This is fraud. We need to file a police report immediately. This actually strengthens our case. It shows consciousness of guilt." They knew they had no legitimate claim. Saturday morning, I met Patricia at the San Jose Police Department. We filed a formal report for forgery and fraud. The officer taking the report, a Detective Martinez, looked skeptical at first. "This is a family dispute over property." "It's a felony forgery case," Patricia corrected. "My client owns the property outright. The defendants created a fraudulent document in an attempt to establish a false legal claim." Detective Martinez studied the forged document, then the original deed. "I'll need to send this to our forensic document examiner. If they confirm it's a forgery, we'll proceed from there." "How long will that take?" I asked. 2 to 3 weeks, usually." Patricia nodded. "We'll be filing a motion to expedite the eviction proceedings based on this fraudulent behavior. The defendants have demonstrated they're willing to commit crimes to avoid vacating the property." As we left the police station, Patricia turned to me. "Emily, you need to be prepared. They're going to escalate. The police report will terrify them. Desperation makes people dangerous." She had no idea how right she was. The explosion came on Monday evening. I was in my apartment trying to focus on a mystery novel when someone began pounding on my door. Aggressive, unrelenting. My heart raced as I approached the peephole. Ethan and Charlotte. His face was red, twisted with anger I'd never seen before. Charlotte looked like a coiled snake ready to strike. I didn't open the door. "Mom, open this door right now," Ethan shouted. "We need to talk." "We can talk through the door, Ethan." "You called the police on us." His fist slammed against the door. "You're trying to give us criminal records over what a misunderstanding. Forging my signature isn't a misunderstanding, it's a crime." Charlotte's voice was shrill. "We didn't forge anything. That document is real. You're just too senile to remember signing it." The word hit like a slap. Senile. So this was their strategy now. "I'm calling building security," I said calmly, pulling out my phone. "You need to leave." "You're destroying our lives," Charlotte screamed. "We'll lose everything. Our jobs, our reputation. And for what? Because I hurt your feelings. You gave me an ultimatum. You chose this." Ethan's voice changed, became pleading. Mom, please, let's work this out. Come back. We can all sit down, talk like adults. Charlotte didn't mean what she said. We were all stressed. Please don't do this to your own son. For a moment, just a moment, I wavered. That was my boy's voice, the one who'd called for me when he had nightmares, who'd brought me dandelions and called them flowers. Then Charlotte spoke again. If you don't drop this, we'll fight back. We'll tell everyone you're mentally unstable. We'll get doctors to testify you're not competent. We'll have you declared unfit to manage your own affairs. The wavering stopped. Ice filled my veins. Security is on their way. Leave now or I'll add harassment to the police report. You'll regret this, Jennifer shrieked. We have friends, connections. We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of vindictive, cruel old woman you are. Better a cruel old woman than a doormat. Goodbye, Ethan. I heard them arguing in the hallway as they left. Charlotte berating Ethan for his weak approach. Building security arrived 5 minutes later. I gave them the video from my door camera. Yes, I'd installed one the day I moved in and filed an incident report. That night, the social media campaign began. Dorothy called me at 11 p.m. Emily, you need to see this. She texted me a link to Charlotte's Facebook page. The post was public, shared dozens of times already. It breaks my heart to share this, but I need advice. My mother-in-law, who we lovingly took into our home 3 years ago, has become increasingly confused and paranoid. She's making false accusations against me and my husband, claiming we've forged documents and stolen from her. We've tried to get her help, but she refuses. Now she's filed false police reports and is trying to evict us from our own home using a technicality from when she briefly helped with our down payment. Has anyone dealt with elder mental decline in a family member? How do you help someone who won't accept they need help? How at Family First, how at Elder Care, how at Heartbroken. The comments were already rolling in. So sad when aging parents become difficult. My mother-in-law had dementia and became so paranoid. Praying for you. You're such a devoted daughter-in-law. She's lucky to have you. But not everyone was sympathetic. Dorothy had already posted a response. I've known Emily Crawford for 20 years. Her mind is sharp as a tack. Maybe ask yourself why the devoted daughter-in-law kicked her out of her own house. #Truth Matters. 3 other women from our knitting circle had commented similar defenses. Should I respond? I asked Dorothy. Absolutely not. Let Patricia handle it legally. But Emily, you should know this is going to get worse before it gets better. Tuesday morning, I called Patricia. They're trying to paint me as mentally incompetent on social media. I expected this. We're going to get ahead of it. I want you to see Dr. Sarah Morrison. She's a geriatric specialist who does cognitive assessments. We'll have medical documentation proving you're of sound mind. How much will that cost? About $800, but it's worth every penny. The assessment took 3 hours. Memory tests, reasoning puzzles, psychological evaluation. Dr. Morrison was thorough but kind, explaining each test as we went. At the end, she smiled. Mrs. Crawford, your cognitive function is excellent. Above average for your age group, actually. I'll have the formal report ready in 48 hours. So I'm not senile, I tried to joke. Not even close. You scored in the superior range on memory retention and problem solving. Whoever's claiming otherwise is either misinformed or lying. Armed with Dr. Morrison's assessment, Patricia sent a cease and desist letter to Ethan and Charlotte. The letter was clear: continue the defamatory social media campaign, and we'd file a lawsuit for defamation and libel. The posts came down within 24 hours, but the damage was done. Some people believed Charlotte's version. I saw it in the looks I got at the grocery store, heard it in the whispers at the library. Poor thing. Mental decline is so sad. Is that the woman whose son is trying to help her? She seems confused. Each comment was a knife, but I held my head high. I knew the truth, and soon so would a judge. On Thursday, exactly 2 weeks after the eviction notice was served, my phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mrs. Crawford, this is David Brennan. I'm an attorney representing your son and daughter-in-law. I almost hung up, but something made me listen. I'm calling because my clients would like to propose a settlement. They recognize that emotions have been running high and they'd like to resolve this matter amicably outside of court. I'm listening. They're prepared to offer you $50,000 in exchange for you signing a quitclaim deed transferring the property to them fully and dropping all legal actions, including the police report. $50,000. It sounded generous until you did the math. According to Susan's nephew's appraisal, the house was worth $475,000 in the current market. They were offering me roughly 10% of what I owned. And if I refuse, I asked. His tone shifted, became less friendly. Mrs. Crawford, forgive me for being blunt, but litigation is expensive and emotionally draining. You're forgive me not young. Do you really want to spend your remaining years in legal battles with your only son? This offer gives you a substantial nest egg and the chance to rebuild your relationship with your family. There it was. The carrot and the stick. Take the money. Surrender. Forgive. Forget. Mr. Brennan, please tell your clients that my answer is no. The house is mine. I'm not selling it to them at any price, and I'm certainly not being bought off with a fraction of its value. Mrs. Crawford, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. What's unreasonable is expecting me to reward fraud and cruelty with a financial windfall. We're done here. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were steady. No trembling, no doubt. Just cold, clear certainty. They'd tried to buy me off, which meant they were scared. Good. That weekend, Dorothy organized an emergency knitting circle meeting. All 4 women showed up at my apartment with food, wine, and determination. We've been talking, Agnes said, pulling out a legal pad covered in notes. And we have a plan. Over the next 2 hours, they laid it out. Agnes would help me organize all my documentation, every payment record, every text message, every email, a complete timeline of events. Susan's nephew had provided the formal appraisal $475,000. His report also noted that market rent for a similar property would be $4,000 per month. Over 3 years at market rate, they should have paid me $144,000. They'd paid less than half that. Maria had quietly reached out to her contacts. If this goes to court and becomes public, I have 2 journalists who want to cover it. Charlotte won't be able to control the narrative. Dorothy squeezed my hand. And I'm here for whatever you need. Moral support. A shoulder to cry on. Someone to remind you that you're doing the right thing. Why are you all doing this? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. Dorothy's eyes were fierce. Because what they did to you could happen to any of us. Because standing up to family when they're wrong is the hardest thing in the world. And because you're our friend Emily. That matters. The 30-day notice period ended on a Thursday. They didn't move out. Friday morning, Patricia filed the unlawful detainer lawsuit. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. Now it gets real, Patricia said. Discovery depositions, courtroom drama. Are you ready? I thought about the girl I'd been at 25, newly divorced, raising a 6-year-old alone, working 2 jobs, fighting Richard's family for custody. I'd been ready then. I was ready now. Let's do this. The week before the trial, Patricia transformed my small apartment into a war room. Documents covered every surface. Property deeds, bank statements, email printouts, text message transcripts, the forged care agreement with red circles marking the signature inconsistencies. Dr. Morrison's cognitive assessment highlighting my superior scores. This is our ammunition, Patricia said, organizing files into color-coded folders. We have everything we need to win. Agnes sat beside her cross-referencing dates on a massive timeline she'd created. May 15th, Charlotte texts Ethan about the deed situation. June 3rd, their payment is 3 weeks late. July 12th, they pay only $600 instead of the agreed $1,800. They're going to claim they were helping you out, Patricia said to me. That you were financially dependent on them. That's why these records matter. They show the truth you were subsidizing them, not the other way around. I studied the numbers Agnes had compiled. In 3 years, they'd paid me an average of $1,000 per month. Market rent for the house was $4,000. They lived in a $500,000 house for a quarter of what they should have paid, I said slowly, and they still kicked me out. Exactly. Patricia's smile was sharp. That's what we'll make the judge see. Wednesday afternoon, 3 days before trial, Dorothy drove me to the house. My house. We parked across the street, just looking. The lawn needed mowing. The rose bushes Richard had planted were overgrown, unpruned. One of the shutters hung crooked. In just 6 weeks since I'd left the place, already looked neglected. You okay? Dorothy asked. I bought that house for my son, I said quietly. I thought I was helping him build a life. Instead, I was just convenient, a way to get what they wanted. Emily, you can't think like that. You acted out of love. They acted out of greed. That's on them, not you. A car pulled into the driveway. Charlotte. She got out, juggling grocery bags in her purse. She looked tired, stressed. She glanced toward the street, and for a moment our eyes met. Her expression hardened. She grabbed her bags and went inside, slamming the door. She's scared, Dorothy observed. Good. That evening I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I called my old neighbor from Sacramento, Helen. She'd been Richard's best friend's wife. We'd stayed close after the funeral. Emily, I've been wondering how you were doing. How's living with Ethan and Charlotte working out? I told her everything. The ultimatum, the eviction, the upcoming trial, silence on the other end. Then, oh, Emily, I'm so sorry. I can't believe Ethan would do that to you. Did I miss something when he was growing up? Some sign that he'd turn out like this. No, honey, Ethan was a good kid, kind, thoughtful. This is about Charlotte, not about how you raised him. He still made the choice. He did, and that's on him. Helen paused. But Emily, can I tell you something? From the outside looking in, please. You've spent 36 years putting Ethan first. Every decision, every sacrifice, every choice. You've earned the right to put yourself first. Don't feel guilty about that. After we hung up, I sat with those words. You've earned the right to put yourself first. It felt selfish. Wrong. Mothers weren't supposed to choose themselves over their children. But then again, children weren't supposed to throw their mothers out onto the street. Friday, 2 days before trial, I received a Facebook message from someone I didn't know, Jessica Matthews. Mrs. Crawford, you don't know me, but I'm a nurse at Valley Medical. I saw Charlotte's posts about you having dementia, and I wanted you to know she came to my OB clinic 6 weeks ago. She's pregnant. About 10 weeks now. I thought you should know before the trial. They're going to use it for sympathy. J. I stared at the message for a long time. Pregnant. I was going to be a grandmother, and I'd found out from a stranger on Facebook because my son hadn't told me. The hurt was physical, sharp, overwhelming. I called Patricia immediately. Charlotte's pregnant. 10 weeks. A long pause. How do you know? A nurse from the OB clinic messaged me. She saw Charlotte's social media posts and wanted to warn me. Okay, this complicates things emotionally, but legally it doesn't change anything. Emily, I need you to be honest with me. Does this change how you feel? Do you still want to proceed? I thought about my future grandchild. Growing up learning that it's okay to treat elderly family members as disposable, learning that manipulation and cruelty get rewarded. No, I said firmly, it doesn't change anything. That baby deserves better than parents who think this behavior is acceptable. Good, because they'll absolutely use this in court. They'll paint you as the heartless grandmother evicting her pregnant daughter-in-law. We need to be ready. Saturday, the day before trial, I couldn't sleep. I kept running through worst-case scenarios. What if the judge sided with them? What if I lost the house? What if I'd burned every bridge for nothing? At 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and made tea. Sat at my small kitchen table watching the city lights through the window. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Mom, please. We can still stop this. Come home. We'll work everything out. I love you. I typed and deleted 5 different responses before settling on, I love you too, but love isn't enough when there's no respect. See you in court. I turned off my phone and watched the sunrise. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. Dorothy picked me up at 8 a.m. You ready for this? She asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. The courthouse was exactly what you'd expect. Marble floors, high ceilings, the smell of floor polish and stress. Patricia met us in the hallway outside courtroom 4B. Remember? She said, squeezing my shoulder. Speak clearly. Answer only what's asked. Don't let them bait you into anger. We have the facts on our side. At 8:45, we entered the courtroom. It was smaller than I'd expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag in the corner. The judge's bench loomed at the front, empty for now. Across the aisle, Ethan and Charlotte sat with their attorney, David Brennan. Charlotte wore a conservative navy dress with pearls, her hair pulled back, makeup subtle, playing the part of the respectable young professional. Ethan wore a suit I'd bought him for his first job interview, He looked ill, pale, dark circles under his eyes. Our eyes met. He looked away first. At 9 a.m. sharp, the bailiff called out, "All rise! The Honorable Judge Martha Hendricks presiding." Judge Hendricks was a woman in her mid-60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes behind reading glasses. She settled into her seat with an air of someone who'd heard every excuse humanity could devise. "Please be seated. Case number 2024 EV 8847. Crawford versus Crawford. Unlawful detainer action." She looked over her glasses at both tables. "This is a straightforward eviction case. Mrs. Emily Crawford, you're seeking to evict the defendants from property you own. Mr. Brennan, your clients contest this. Let's proceed." Brennan stood buttoning his jacket. "Thank you, Your Honor. We argue that Mrs. Crawford lacks standing to evict our clients. They have an equitable ownership interest in the property based on 3 years of payments and significant improvements to the home. Furthermore, Your Honor, we have serious concerns about Mrs. Crawford's mental competency to pursue this action." There it was, the nuclear option. Patricia rose smoothly, her voice calm and professional. "Your Honor, we anticipated this desperate argument. I'd like to present several pieces of evidence." She handed documents to the bailiff, who passed them to Judge Hendricks. First, the property deed showing Mrs. Crawford as sole owner. Second, a comprehensive cognitive assessment from Dr. Sarah Morrison, a board-certified geriatric specialist, conducted 3 weeks ago. Mrs. Crawford scored in the superior range for her age group. Third, bank records showing the irregular informal payments the defendants made. And fourth, Patricia's voice hardened, a forged care agreement the defendants created and presented to my client, attempting to manufacture a legal right that never existed. She handed over the forensic handwriting analysis. "The signature on this document is a forgery, Your Honor. The defendants created this fraudulent document after the eviction notice was served. We've filed a police report. The district attorney is currently reviewing the case for potential criminal charges." Brennan's face went pale. "Your Honor, that's an extremely serious accusation." "It's an extremely serious crime," Patricia interrupted. "Felony forgery. We have expert testimony ready to present." Judge Hendricks studied the documents, her expression darkening with each page. The courtroom was silent except for the rustle of paper. Finally, she looked up. "Mr. Brennan, do your clients have any legitimate documentation showing an ownership stake or formal rental agreement?" Brennan hesitated. "Your Honor, our position is that 3 years of payments and residence create an implied contract. There's also the matter of significant improvements they made to the property." "That's not what I asked," Judge Hendricks interrupted. "Do you have documentation, a lease, a rental agreement, any written contract?" "Not formal documentation, no. But yet, the principle of equitable ownership doesn't apply when the supposed equity is built on fraudulent documents." She turned to Ethan and Charlotte. "Mr. Crawford, Mrs. Crawford, please stand." They stood. Charlotte lifted her chin defiantly. Ethan looked like he might be sick. "Did you create a document with Mrs. Crawford's forged signature?" Judge Hendricks asked directly. Charlotte opened her mouth, but Brennan put a hand on her arm. "Your Honor, my clients invoke their Fifth Amendment right." "Sit down, Mr. Brennan. I'm asking a simple question." The judge's voice was steel. "Mrs. Charlotte Crawford, did you or did you not create a fraudulent document?" Charlotte's composure cracked. "Your Honor, my mother-in-law is elderly and confused. She's making wild accusations because I have a cognitive assessment here dated 3 weeks ago," Judge Hendricks interrupted, holding up Dr. Morrison's report. "It says Mrs. Crawford scored in the superior range. Superior. Do you have medical evidence to contradict this professionally conducted evaluation?" Silence. "I'll take that as a no. Let me ask again. Did you create a document with Mrs. Crawford's forged signature?" Charlotte's face flushed red. "She abandoned us. She was living in our home, eating our food, and then she just left and tried to steal the house from under us. We had to protect ourselves." "It's not your home," I heard myself say, standing up. "It was never your home." "Order!" Judge Hendricks's gavel came down hard. "Mrs. Crawford, please sit down. Mrs. Charlotte Crawford, you did not answer my question." Charlotte's hands were shaking. Tears started streaming down her face. Real ones, I realized. She was genuinely scared. "It wasn't like that," she said, her voice breaking. I wanted my own space, my own home. Is that so wrong? We've been paying for it. We've maintained it. We made it ours. She turned to me and her eyes were desperate. You don't understand what it's like, Emily. Living with someone else's mother. Someone who's always there, always watching. I couldn't breathe in my own space. It wasn't your space. Each word came out sharp. I owned it. You were my guests. Guests who kicked me out. You were a burden, Charlotte shouted, all pretense gone. Do you know what it's like having someone there all the time I wanted to start a family? I wanted privacy. I wanted a life that was mine. Order the gavel again. Mrs. Crawford, sit down now or I'll hold you in contempt. Charlotte sat sobbing. Brennan looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Judge Hendricks turned to Ethan, who'd been silent throughout. Mr. Crawford, do you have anything to say? Ethan stood slowly. His hands were shaking. He looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time since the trial started. Your Honor, His voice cracked. I need to tell the truth. Ethan, don't, Charlotte started, but he raised his hand. No, no more. He turned to the judge. My mother is telling the truth. The house is hers. She bought it with her own money when Charlotte and I couldn't qualify for a mortgage. We were supposed to transfer the deed to our names after our credit improved, but... He swallowed hard. But Charlotte kept delaying. She said we should wait. Said it was safer to keep it in my mom's name for tax reasons. I believed her. Or maybe, he looked at me, tears in his eyes. Maybe I didn't want to believe what was really happening. What was really happening? Judge Hendricks asked. Charlotte was using my mother. We both were. Mom paid for the house. She contributed to groceries, utilities. She cooked, cleaned, tried to help. And we treated her like she was in the way. His voice broke completely. I treated my own mother like she was a burden, the woman who raised me alone, who worked 2 jobs so I could go to college, who gave up everything for me. Ethan, shut up, Charlotte hissed. You're destroying us. We destroyed ourselves. He turned back to the judge. Charlotte forged that document. She told me it was necessary to protect ourselves, but it was fraud. We lied. And when Mom found out and tried to defend herself, Charlotte threatened to have her declared mentally incompetent. We were going to take everything from her, not just the house, her freedom, her dignity, everything. The courtroom was completely silent. Your Honor, Ethan continued, his face wet with tears. My mother has every right to evict us. We don't deserve her mercy. I don't deserve her forgiveness. But I'm standing here telling you the truth because she raised me better than this. And I'm so sorry that I forgot. Charlotte was staring at him like he'd betrayed her, which I suppose he had. Judge Hendricks set down her pen. Mr. Crawford, are you confessing under oath that you and your wife created a fraudulent document and threatened your mother with a frivolous conservatorship action? Yes, Your Honor. Sit down, she turned to Brennan. Mr. Brennan, does your client wish to present any defense? Brennan looked defeated. Your Honor, in light of Mr. Crawford's testimony, I need to consult with my clients. You can consult all you want, but I've heard everything I need to hear. Judge Hendricks shuffled her papers, then looked directly at me. Mrs. Crawford, I want to say something before I issue my ruling. In my 23 years on the bench, I've seen countless family disputes over property. Most of them are complicated with fault on multiple sides. This is not one of those cases. She turned to Ethan and Charlotte. You took advantage of a grieving widow. You accepted her generosity, lived in her property for a fraction of market rent, and when she became inconvenient, you discarded her. When she defended herself, you committed fraud. You threatened her with legal action designed to strip her of her autonomy and dignity. This is not a gray area. This is clear, calculated exploitation of an elderly family member. Charlotte stood abruptly. Your Honor, please. I'm pregnant. We have nowhere else to go. You can't— Sit down, Mrs. Crawford. I'm 10 weeks pregnant. Charlotte's voice was desperate now, playing her final card. This stress isn't good for the baby. My mother-in-law is trying to evict her own future grandchild. What kind of person does that? The courtroom erupted in whispers. I felt like I'd been punched. So it was true. Judge Hendricks's expression didn't change. Mrs. Crawford, I'm a mother and a grandmother myself. I understand the emotional weight of pregnancy, but this court rules on law, not emotional manipulation. She looked at me. Did you know about the pregnancy? I found out 3 days ago, I said quietly. From a stranger. My own son didn't tell me. Ethan's face crumpled. Mom, I wanted to. I tried to call you so many times. You tried to call after you received the eviction notice, I said. Not when you found out you were going to be a father. Not when you might have wanted to share good news with your mother. Only when you needed something from me. Judge Hendricks nodded slowly. Mrs. Crawford Charlotte, let me be very clear. Your pregnancy does not give you the right to occupy someone else's property. It does not excuse fraud. It does not erase your actions. If you're genuinely concerned about your baby's welfare, you should have considered that before you committed felony forgery and threatened an elderly woman. She picked up her gavel. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Emily Crawford. The defendants have no legal claim to the property. They have no valid lease or rental agreement. The property deed clearly shows Mrs. Crawford as the sole legal owner. The gavel came down. Once, twice, 3 times. The eviction is granted. The defendants have 72 hours to vacate the property completely. If they fail to do so, the sheriff will remove them and their belongings. Furthermore, I'm ordering the defendants to pay Mrs. Crawford's legal fees in full. The current total is... She checked Patricia's filing, $18,400. Charlotte made a strangled sound. Additionally, I'm recommending that the district attorney pursue criminal charges for the forged document. This court takes fraud very seriously, particularly when it targets vulnerable populations. She looked at Charlotte one more time. Mrs. Crawford, you're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. But you need to learn that actions have consequences. I hope this experience teaches you that. To Ethan, Mr. Crawford, your confession today showed courage. But courage doesn't erase harm. You chose to stand by while your wife mistreated your mother. You chose to participate in fraud. Those choices have consequences too. Finally, to me, Mrs. Crawford, this court apologizes that you had to fight for what was rightfully yours. You showed dignity and strength throughout this process. I hope you find peace in the outcome. One final strike of the gavel. Court is adjourned. I stood in the hallway outside the courtroom feeling numb. Dorothy hugged me tight. You won, she whispered. Emily, you won. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving. Patricia was already on her phone coordinating with the sheriff's office for the eviction enforcement. Agnes was organizing the court documents. Susan and Maria flanked me like bodyguards. Across the hall, Ethan sat on a bench, head in his hands. Charlotte stood against the wall, her face blank with shock. Brennan was talking to them in low, urgent tones. Charlotte looked up and saw me watching. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Regret, fear, hatred, I couldn't tell. Then Ethan looked up too. Our eyes met. He stood, took a step toward me. Charlotte grabbed his arm, but he shook her off. Mom, he said, stopping a few feet away. Can I talk to you? Please, Patricia moved between us. Mrs. Crawford isn't... It's okay, I said. Give us a minute. Dorothy, Agnes, Susan, and Maria moved down the hall close enough to intervene if needed. Patricia stayed right beside me. Ethan's eyes were red swollen. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't even know if I can forgive myself. But I need you to know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. Are you sorry you did it? I asked quietly. Or sorry you got caught? He flinched like I'd hit him. I'm sorry I did it. All of it. I'm sorry I let Charlotte treat you that way. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. I'm sorry I chose to be weak instead of being the man you raised me to be. Behind him, Charlotte made a disgusted sound. Ethan, we need to go. Stop groveling. He didn't even look at her. I'm not groveling. I'm apologizing to my mother. Something I should have done months ago. Your mother just destroyed our lives. No. Ethan turned to face her. We destroyed our own lives. You by being cruel and manipulative. Me by being too much of a coward to stop you. Charlotte's face went white, then red. How dare you! Enough! Ethan's voice was firm, stronger than I'd heard it in years. We're done, Charlotte. We're done lying, done manipulating, done blaming everyone else for our choices. He turned back to me. Mom, you're going to be a grandmother. I wish I'd told you when we first found out. I wanted to. I was going to call you a dozen times, but Charlotte said we should wait until after we dealt with the legal situation. He said it with bitter emphasis. Like you were a problem to be solved instead of my mom. The pain in his voice was real. I could see it, feel it, but pain didn't erase what he'd done. I'm glad you told the truth today, I said carefully. That took courage. It was the least I could do, literally the bare minimum. Yes, it was. He nodded, accepting the harsh truth. I know I don't have the right to ask anything from you, but is there any chance someday that you could forgive me? I looked at my son, the man I'd raised, the man who'd failed me so completely. I don't know, Ethan. Right now I'm just trying to survive this. Forgiveness feels like something very far away. I understand. Tears streamed down his face. I love you, Mom. I know I have a terrible way of showing it, but I do. I know you do. I love you too. My voice cracked. That's what makes this so heartbreaking. If I didn't love you, none of this would hurt so much. Charlotte appeared at his elbow. Ethan, we need to go. We have to start packing. We have 72 hours. She looked at me and her expression was complex, not the hatred I expected. Something more like defeat, exhaustion. I hope you're happy, she said, but without the venom I'd heard before. Just tired resignation. I'm not, I replied honestly. Nobody wins in situations like this. For just a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Understanding, maybe, or recognition that we were both casualties of this war. Then she turned and walked away. Ethan followed, looking back once more before they disappeared around the corner. 72 hours later, I stood on the sidewalk in front of my house with Patricia Dorothy and Sheriff Ramirez, a broad-shouldered woman with kind eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. 2 moving trucks sat in the driveway. Workers loaded boxes and furniture in a steady stream. Charlotte directed them with sharp, angry gestures. She refused to look at me. Every time she emerged with another box, her movements were aggressive, punishing. Ethan moved slowly, mechanically. He'd load something into the truck, then stand there staring at nothing for long moments before going back inside. Mrs. Crawford, Sheriff Ramirez said, walking over, we've completed the walkthrough. The property is clear except for the items currently being loaded. Here are your new keys. She handed me a set of keys. Patricia had recommended changing all the locks immediately after the eviction was enforced. Thank you, Sheriff. As Ramirez walked back to supervise, David Brennan approached. He looked considerably less polished than he had in court. Mrs. Crawford, he said stiffly, my clients wanted me to inform you that they'll be pursuing a claim for the improvements they made to the property. The kitchen renovation, the backyard work. They estimate the value at $75,000. Patricia actually laughed. Mr. Brennan, they made those improvements without the owner's permission. In property law, that makes them legally worthless. Tell your clients to save their money. They're already paying Mrs. Crawford's legal fees. If they want to add more to their debt with a frivolous lawsuit, by all means. Brennan's jaw tightened. There's also the matter of the payments they made over 3 years. You mean the informal payments with no rental agreement? Patricia pulled out a document. I've done the math. Market rent for a house this size in this neighborhood is $4,000 per month. They paid an average of $1,000. Over 3 years, they actually owe Mrs. Crawford approximately $132,000 in below-market rent. Shall we countersue? Brennan went pale. I'll inform my clients. As he walked away, Charlotte intercepted him. I couldn't hear their words, but her raised voice carried. Brennan looked increasingly uncomfortable, then finally walked to his car and drove away. Charlotte stood there for a moment alone in the driveway, hand pressed to her stomach. Pregnant, scared, realizing the full scope of what she'd lost. I felt an unexpected flicker of, not sympathy exactly, but something like it. She was young, foolish, she'd made terrible choices. But she was also about to be a mother facing homelessness and criminal charges. The baby didn't deserve this. None of this was the baby's fault. The last items were loaded by 3 p.m. Charlotte got into their car without a backward glance. She sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead, her face expressionless. Ethan was the last to leave the property. He walked slowly toward me, stopping a few feet away. Mom, I know you probably never want to see me again. And I understand. I just wanted to say, he swallowed hard. You deserved better. You deserved a son who stood up for you. I'm sorry I wasn't that son. Where will you go? I asked. Charlotte's sister in Fresno, temporarily, until we figure things out. He looked broken, lost. The DA offered Charlotte a plea deal, 3 years probation, community service, restitution. If she doesn't take it, she could face prison time. With the baby coming, his voice cracked. Everything is falling apart. Ethan, I said carefully, I need you to understand something. I didn't do this to punish you. I did this because I deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. What happened to you and Charlotte, those are consequences of your own choices. I know. He wiped his eyes. I know that now. I just hope, someday, maybe when the baby is born. Could you meet your grandchild? The question hit me hard. My grandchild, a baby I might never know. I don't know, I said honestly. Ask me again in 6 months, after you've had time to think about what kind of father you want to be, what kind of man you want to be. He nodded. Okay, I can do that. He took a step toward his car, then turned back. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Ethan. I always will. But love isn't enough when there's no respect. He got in the car. Charlotte was crying now, her face in her hands. Ethan said something to her I couldn't hear. Then he started the engine. They drove away. I stood there watching until the car disappeared around the corner. You okay? Dorothy asked, putting her arm around me. I will be, I said. And surprisingly, I meant it. I walked through the house alone. Patricia, Dorothy, and the others waited outside, giving me space. Every room held memories. The kitchen, where I'd made countless family dinners. The living room, where we'd celebrated holidays. Ethan's old bedroom, now converted to a guest room. The garden was worse than I'd thought. The rose bushes Richard planted were nearly dead from neglect. The vegetable patch I'd started was overgrown with weeds. The lawn was patchy and brown. Charlotte had remodeled the kitchen without asking me. Painted the walls a cold gray, replaced the warm oak cabinets with stark white ones. It didn't look like a home anymore. It looked like a magazine spread. Beautiful, but soulless. In the master bedroom, the one they'd claimed, I found a framed ultrasound photo on the nightstand. 10 weeks, 2 days. The date was 3 weeks ago. My grandchild. Already the size of a strawberry, according to the note written on the frame in Charlotte's handwriting. I picked up the photo, studied the tiny blob that would become a person. A person who would grow up hearing some version of this story. Would they be told I was the cruel grandmother who evicted their pregnant mother, or would they eventually learn the truth? I set the photo down carefully and walked out. In the kitchen, I made one phone call. West Side Realty, this is Jennifer speaking. Hello, I need to list a house for sale, as soon as possible. 2 days later, a realtor named Tom Wilson walked through with his camera and measuring tape. Beautiful property, he said, making notes. Great neighborhood. I'd estimate market value around $475,000. We might even get offers above asking in this market. How quickly could it sell? A house like this, 2 to 3 weeks if we price it right. Let's do it. Patricia called the next afternoon. Emily, I wanted to update you. Charlotte took the plea deal. 3 years probation, 200 hours community service, and full restitution of your legal fees. She'll have a felony on her record, but she won't go to prison. What about Ethan? The DA decided not to charge him. His cooperation and confession in court counted in his favor. Plus, there's no evidence he actively participated in creating the forged document, just that he knew about it after the fact. So he's free? Legally, yes, though he's living with the consequences in other ways. I heard through the grapevine that his company is reconsidering his recent promotion. Legal issues, even when you're not charged, tend to make employers nervous. I absorbed this. And Charlotte's job? She was fired the day after the trial. Her company has a zero-tolerance policy for employees with criminal records. She's been applying elsewhere, but... Patricia's voice was sympathetic. Felony convictions show up on background checks. It's going to be very difficult for her to find work in her field. I thought about Charlotte. Young, pregnant, unemployed with a felony record. The consequences were severe, but they were consequences she'd brought on herself. Thank you for the update, Patricia. Emily, can I ask you something personal? How are you doing with all this? I looked around my small apartment. Humble, temporary, but mine. I'm okay, I said, and I was surprised to realize it was true. The house sold in 3 weeks for $495,000, $20,000 over asking. 2 couples had gotten into a bidding war. After paying off remaining fees, taxes, and Patricia's final bill, I cleared $410,000. It was more money than I'd ever had in my life. I bought a small cottage in Santa Cruz, 2 bedrooms walking distance to the beach. It cost $200,000, leaving me with over $200,000 in savings. For the first time since Richard died, I felt financially secure. The cottage was mine, completely, legally, undeniably mine. No mortgage, no strings. Just me and 4 walls and a future I got to decide. I furnished it exactly how I wanted. Comfortable oversized chairs, bright colors, lots of windows, books everywhere, plants on every surface. Dorothy and the knitting circle came over for the housewarming. We sat on my new deck drinking wine and watching the sunset over the ocean. To Emily, Dorothy raised her glass. Who taught us all that it's never too late to choose yourself? We clinked glasses and I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. I joined a community theater group. At 69, I was the oldest person in the cast of The Importance of Being Earnest. I played Lady Bracknell and got a standing ovation on opening night. Dorothy, Agnes, Susan, and Maria sat in the front row cheering so loudly the director had to shush them. After the show, a man my age approached. "You were wonderful. I'm Robert. I played the rector." "Emily," I said, shaking his hand. "Would you like to get coffee sometime? I know a great place near the pier." I smiled. I'd like that. I took painting classes, discovered I had a talent for watercolors. My teacher, a kind woman named Lisa, said I had an eye for light. I volunteered at the local literacy center teaching adults to read. One of my students, a 50-year-old man named Carlos, cried when he read his first complete book. "I can read to my grandkids now," he said. "Thank you." "You did the work, Carlos. I just helped." I adopted a cat from the shelter, a orange tabby with 1 torn ear and the loudest purr I'd ever heard. I named him Gatsby. He slept on my bed every night, curled against my side. When I had nightmares about the trial, about Ethan's face, about everything I'd lost, Gatsby would wake me with gentle paws on my cheek. "It's okay," I'd whisper to him. "We're okay now." Through the inevitable small-town grapevine and Dorothy's information network, I heard about Ethan and Charlotte. The felony conviction had destroyed Charlotte's career. No marketing firm would hire her. She'd taken a job in retail, working the floor at a department store. Their marriage was deteriorating. Ethan's promotion had been rescinded. They'd declared bankruptcy. The legal fees, the restitution, Charlotte's lost income, it had crushed them financially. They'd moved from Charlotte's sister's place to a small apartment in a rough neighborhood. Ethan's car had been repossessed. The baby girl, Lily Marie, was born in November. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Healthy. Dorothy's cousin knew Charlotte's sister's hairdresser. The information filtered through. Charlotte had postpartum depression. Ethan was working 60-hour weeks to keep them afloat. They were fighting constantly. "Do you want to reach out?" Dorothy asked me one evening. "You have a granddaughter, Emily." I looked at the ultrasound photo I'd kept, the only picture I had of Lily. "Not yet," I said, Sati said. "Maybe someday, but not yet." Ethan tried to contact me twice. First on Lily's birth. A simple text. "It's a girl, Lily Marie Crawford. She's beautiful. I wish you could meet her." I stared at the message for an hour before responding. "Congratulations, I'm glad she's healthy. No more, no less." The second time was Christmas. A card arrived in the mail. Inside was a photo of Lily 2 months old with Ethan's eyes and Charlotte's nose. The card said, "Merry Christmas, Mom. Lily is doing well. We're managing. I think about you every day. I hope you're happy. I hope one day you can forgive me. Love, always, Ethan." I put the photo on my refrigerator, looked at it every morning. My granddaughter, a child I'd never held, might never hold. The grief was real, sharp, constant, but so was my peace. My 70th birthday was a revelation. 23 people crowded into my cottage, the knitting circle, my theater friends, people from the literacy center. Robert, who'd become, well, not quite a boyfriend, but something warm and promising. We ate cake, told stories, laughed until we cried. Susan gave a toast. To Emily, who taught us all that respect isn't negotiable, not even from family, especially not from family. Everyone raised their glasses. As I blew out the candles, I made a wish. Not for reconciliation with Ethan. Not for revenge on Charlotte. Not even for continued good fortune. I wished for more days like this. More mornings waking up in my own home beholden to no one. More evenings spent exactly as I pleased. More moments of pure, simple joy. The wish felt attainable. Real. Mine. That night after everyone left, I sat on my deck watching the stars. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Crawford, this is Charlotte. I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted you to know something. I'm in therapy. Court-ordered at first, but now I go voluntarily. I'm learning about the trauma that made me need to control everything. About how I hurt people, including you. I'm learning to be better, for Lily. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm trying. Charlotte." I read it 3 times. Then I wrote back, "Thank you for telling me. I hope therapy helps you. Lily deserves parents who've done the work to heal." That was all. No forgiveness, no invitation, just acknowledgement. Small steps. 2 weeks later, another text, this time from Ethan. "Mom, I know you said to give you time. It's been a year. I'm not asking for anything." But Lily smiled for the first time yesterday. A real smile, not just gas. And all I could think was, I wish my mom could see this. I wish I hadn't destroyed everything. I'm sorry. For all of it. I understand if you never want to see us. But know that I'm trying to be the father and the son you raised me to be. Even if it's too late. I love you. I cried reading that. Then I picked up the phone and called Dorothy. "He wants to see me," I said. "Wants me to meet Lily." "What do you want?" That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want? I thought about it for days. Weeks. Finally, I texted back. "Not yet, but maybe someday. Keep sending pictures of Lily. I want to see her grow up, even if it's from a distance. And Ethan, I'm proud of you for trying. That's a start." 1 year and 3 months after the trial, I stood on the beach at sunrise. The ocean stretched before me, endless and beautiful. The sky painted pink and gold. Gatsby had followed me out, weaving between my legs, purring. I thought about everything I'd been through, everything I'd lost. My marriage to Richard. My relationship with Ethan, fractured maybe beyond repair. Years of my life spent making myself smaller. But I'd also gained so much. My dignity, my independence, my peace. A life that was entirely mine. Did I do the right thing? Yes. Do I miss my son every single day? Would I do it again? Absolutely. Am I happy? Finally, genuinely, surprisingly, yes. Because here's what I learned. Sometimes choosing yourself is choosing family. Because you're family too. And you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity and love. Even by yourself. Especially by yourself. I walked into the sunrise Gatsby trotting beside me, and I smiled. The future was uncertain. Maybe Ethan and I would rebuild our relationship. Maybe we wouldn't. Maybe I'd meet Lily someday. Maybe that ship had sailed. But right now, in this moment, I had something precious. I had myself. And that was enough. So here's what I want you to remember from my story. Respect isn't negotiable. Not from anyone. Not even from family. Especially not from family. It's never too late to stand up for yourself. I did it at 68. You can do it at any age. Love isn't enough without respect. I loved my son. He loved me. But love without respect is just pretty words. Boundaries are an act of self-love. When I set boundaries with Ethan and Charlotte, I wasn't being cruel. I was being kind to myself. Consequences teach better than forgiveness sometimes. Ethan learned more from losing me than he ever learned from my unconditional acceptance. What would you have done in my place? Would you have fought back or accepted being discarded? Have you ever had to choose between family and your own dignity? Comment below. Tell me your story. Let me know which city you're reading from. Because here's the truth. You are worth fighting for. Remember that. Always.